I really wish there was a quicker way to get rid of these colds. Well, if I lived in the world in the book Transferral by Blair, then there would be. This is a dystopia set in a world where people have figured out a way to get rid of their sicknesses. They just transfer them through some magical technology. But the catch is your cold or your sickness can only go to somebody or to a living person. So what they've done is criminals take over your sicknesses. So like if you did something not too bad, you might get sentenced to a cold or the flu, but if you did something really bad, you could get a very bad illness, polio or tuberculosis or something even worse. And of course there's no treatment allowed for you if you've been sentenced to this. So our main character, Talia, her father is running for prime minister because this book takes place in England. And she has always loved this system. It makes total sense to her. You know, if you don't want to get a sickness, then don't commit a crime. It's pretty clear, cut and easy, or cut and dried, right? Well, as a savvy reader, I suspected there might be a catch to it. So as the book begins, Talia is sick and she goes to the hospital and she transfers her cold to some unknown person. You don't know who it is. But while she's leaving the hospital, she witnesses a man with a meat cleaver, kind of crazy, running around in the hospital. And he turns and he faces this young girl. And Talia, without even thinking about it, grabs a chair and smashes him over the head with the chair. And she becomes a hero, which really boosts her father's rank in his tight race for prime minister. So it really helps him out too. So that's great for him. Well, the more she thinks about it, she thinks about this young girl who she saved, who ran away, and nobody knows where she is, and Talia wants to help her. And the more she investigates, and even when she goes to talk to this man in jail, which she's not supposed to do, she kind of forges a letter and does some things she's not supposed to, but she goes there, and she finds out that the young girl is this man's daughter. Now she really has to find her. And she tracks her down to a section of the city. It's not exactly walled off, but sort of a walled off section of the city where criminals live, where people who don't have money live. People get sick there even if they're not criminals, but if you're sick, people assume you're a criminal because why would you be sick otherwise? She tracks her to this area and things just get worse and worse. She keeps trying to help, but everything she does ends up making things worse for this young girl and for her older brother who Talia meets, who's where she hears about all these things. So slowly Talia begins to see that this system that she has always supported doesn't work quite as well as she thought. It's not as fair as she thought. Some people who are trying to do good are ending up being labeled as criminals. This is the beauty of the book. It's a dystopia. It reads like any other dystopia in many ways, but if you're paying attention, it's really an allegory or a comparison to a lot of things happening in our world right now that seem like they just make total sense. If you don't do the crime, you don't do the time, so just keep your nose clean, and why don't you just do what the police tell you to do, and all kinds of things, but not really as simple as they might seem on the surface of it. So that's what I really loved about this book. Plus, and I don't have the actual book with me, but it's barely thicker than my actual iPad where I showed you the cover of the book. It's a very short book, which is unusual for a dystopia. Often the world building takes a book this thick, whereas this one is like this thick. Now, I did think the last few chapters were a little long, where she's running away from the walled off section, where she's trying to get to her father. And I thought her solution to the problem was, maybe a little dramatic, like there could have been some better way or some less intense way for her to let people know what's happening. But that's kind of a small issue. That's not a big thing. It's a great sci-fi. It's quick. It's the kind of thing people are really into, especially the teens at my school, that they really want to read. And it's a unique premise, which is always something I'm looking for. So, in the meantime, until we can actually transfer our own sicknesses, not that we want to, after we have read Transferral and we know what that means, but if we could do that and it wouldn't be all that bad, in the meantime, just read the book and enjoy that.